Before we get started on my current journey, I thought I'd take you guys back to where it all started. I remember my very first Hyrox. I walked in. I'd done a lot of CrossFit competitions, so I was expecting a traditional CrossFit competition. And when I got there, this was nothing like I imagined. This felt like the CrossFit Games. It was a huge event. There were so many people. There was so much stuff. So typically when I compete, I'm not very anxious, but walking in and seeing everyone there, seeing all the people, the setup, the lights, and then actually seeing the competition, I started to get butterflies. Seeing the amount of people, the athletes, the setup, it was truly amazing. Being perfectly honest, I wasn't actually going to do Hyrox, but my friend Station insisted that I do it, so I decided to do it. So when I got there, seeing him in the warm-up area, seeing familiar faces, definitely made it a little bit more settling. I've been dealing with some IT band pain leading up to it, so I was a little nervous about how that.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, it is what it is. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Just going out there to have a good time. So right now I'm getting ready to kick off my first Hyrox race. It's been a long time coming. There's some ups and downs. I'm not a great runner, so I'll be perfectly honest. Running makes me a little more comfortable, but I'm just gonna try to have a good time and push myself to do my best. And whatever happens, happens.
As I was getting close to my time to start, you had to walk through one of the lap lanes to make it to the athlete area. And that's when I felt a pit in my stomach and I was like, damn, I'm really here. I'm about to do this. So I was trying to distract myself and calm my nerves. And then I see some more familiar faces. So now I'm starting to watch them compete and see how they're doing and just sizing up and thinking how it's going to go when it's my turn. The way they do Hyrox is they break it up like a marathon where you put your projected finish time and then they group you with people who are typically the same speed that you are. And there we are. Me and Gia finally took off. This was our first lap. And I gotta say, I was a little nervous when we started, but once I got into it, the inner athlete kicked in and I started to find myself becoming a dog. The runs were definitely tough, but the floor exercises weren't that bad. And it was super helpful to have someone with me my first time, because when the negative thoughts would pop in or the thoughts of I can't do this or I'm tired, Gia would help me settle and calm and remind me that I got this. My rope pull technique definitely wasn't the best, but the rope wasn't heavy. It was just more tedious trying to figure out the proper technique while you're watching people next to you who've probably done this before, who got it down pat. So I gotta say, for the first time, this was probably one of the more challenging events. As you can see from this video, it felt like the rope climb took forever. It's really only 2 pulls each way, but this felt like we were doing this for 15 years. And I was trying my best, but at this point, my arms were tired, my legs were tired, my mind was tired, and this was just purely fight or flight. Heading into the final pull of the sled, I was spent, I was tired, and I looked up at the clock and I realized this was only the 3rd event. Looking back at my first Hyrox, one of the biggest mistakes I made was just walking. We didn't realize your time in the rock zone was what they were judging and not how long it took for you to finish the individual event. So walking out the rock zone and walking back to the lap lanes definitely ate into our time a lot. But at this point, I definitely need it. There you can see we're trucking along, still holding it down, trying our best. We did a really good job. My biggest commitment in this competition was that I was going to make all the runs without needing to stop. When we got to the farmer's carries, I really found my stride. One of the more funny things I like to do when I compete is sometimes, just for concentration, I'll think of a song and I'll start to sing it in my head just to block out the pain of wanting to stop. So this entire time for the 200 meters of the farmer's carries, I was singing Ran Off on the Plug by Plies. It just sometimes for me, just doing that just blocks out any other thoughts. So I found it easier to run than to walk, and I was able to do this in one shot. Coming off the farmer's carries back into the run, one of the biggest things you don't realize is how tired your shoulders are. The weight's not really heavy, but it's just the motion of going from the farmer's carry into a run. Your traps are on fire. Now, this is where things really start to get spicy. The lunges, again, the weight isn't heavy, but just the way your legs feel after coming off the run, all the other things you've done, it definitely catches up to you. This is where it's super important to have the right type of shoes. Once you finish the lunges, you know you're almost done and the wall balls are in sight. Now, my biggest recommendation once you get to the wall balls is just if you're with a partner, try to knock these out in big chunks. Do as many as you can. Don't set a number. Just go for it, because once you get to 100, you're done. There's 2 of you. It's 50 wall balls a piece. So just try to knock it out. Doing CrossFit, I'd been used to using a 20-pound wall ball, but the weight in Hyrox is 14. So here, these were money. It was all day. I was doing big sets. I think the first set I did 40 in a row, just because knocking these out at this point was the only thing standing between me and being finished. At this point, it's just fight or flight. You got to go for it and just see what you can get done and how you can finish. If you're working with a partner, I highly recommend you guys say the count out loud, just to make sure that your judge is actually counting your wall balls, because oftentimes what happens is the judge won't say the count aloud and he'll just give you a no rep, and you'll think you're at 80 and find out you're at 60. The wall balls is probably the most bittersweet moment of Hyrox, because when you think about it, you're almost done. It's something that you trained months for. You've had anxiety, you've had ups, downs throughout this race, and you know you're 100 wall balls away from it all being over. Now, this is one major tip no one told me, is that when you finish your wall balls, they don't count your time until you run up the ramp. So if you're gonna do Hyrox, make sure you run up the ramp, and most importantly, make sure you flex for a picture after when you're coming down. Completing my first Hyrox is really one of the best athletic accomplishments I'd had in my 30s, and I was super proud of myself for completing this, and it inspired me to want to keep doing it. I truly gotta say, the setup of Hyrox makes it very easy to stay motivated and feel engaged, because as you're running through and you're competing and you're going past, you see friends, you see family members, and there's people genuinely there cheering you on. And much different than other competitions, it's not like people are trying to beat each other. Everyone is just trying to finish. So if you're in a lane and you're doing lunges, or you're doing burpees, or you're pushing the sled, the person to your right or your left is saying, you got this. So I felt very fired up. So midway through, as soon as we got to the sled push, I felt myself come alive.
So coming off of Hyrox doing partners, would you said he broadened his approach the second go around, or did he focus more so on what he needed to do after experiencing it the first time with partners?
So I would say after being in a partnership, Brian then just did a bunch of like simulations for Hyrox. So he would run the Hyrox race essentially every Saturday. And then I think it definitely helped, but I think his approach this time is much better. He's doing a lot of just long runs, kind of trying to get himself in better conditioning in the sense of running, because all of like the Metcon stuff he's really good at. He just is not a good runner.
And
one of the hardest things in training for a race like Hyrox is all the people you see on Instagram have so much time. But someone like myself, from 6 a.m. to about 8:30, I'm face-to-face with clients all day. I have work to do for the business. It's hard to sometimes find times to eat. So taking on this challenge has been tough, because I've had to make a lot of modifications to my life. Like, one of the biggest changes that I made is I started working out at 5 a.m. because I figured at least at 5 a.m. I know every day for 1 hour, I could have an hour of work uninterrupted. I've been running 3 days a week, which is tough because I'm definitely not a runner. And I've been focusing on doing 2 strength days and 2 conditioning days. So what ends up happening on days like Thursdays and Saturdays where I have more time, I typically hit a double session, and then every other day is just one individual workout. Diet-wise, what I've been doing is I've been tracking my macros and trying my best just to get meals in. Sometimes with my schedule, I just don't have time to eat. So I've been relying on bars, shakes, English muffins with peanut butter on them, anything I can get just to make sure that I hit my calories. And then for my lunches and dinners, it's been pretty simple, just like chicken, rice, veggies. And yeah, that's really it. The main goal of this prep has just been consistency. So I wanted to take you guys back in time to show you my second Hyrox, so you guys can truly appreciate the progression and development I've had over the last couple years as an athlete. So this is Hyrox DC North America Championships.
We made it. We're here. It is time.
Walking into this Hyrox felt a lot different. Because it was the convention center, there wasn't as much going on outside, so it left a little bit of apprehension, but I felt great because I've been training hard.
We're finally here. There's no turning back. This is a lot bigger spot than the last one. Jeez.
All right,
Okay.
there you are. Don't lose that or they'll charge you $50.
Okay.
You win the championship, country.
Yeah, I'm glad you believe in me.
You got this. Ain't none but some people you can burn past.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Have a good
And
day.
ain't too many people who look like us doing this, so.
Okay.
Although it had only been a couple of months since my last Hyrox, you could really see that this sport was growing. It seemed like they had a lot more money, a lot more sponsors, and it was just really cool to see how it was evolving and growing. Right before you walked in, they had this really cool thing that had every athlete's name. So I went there to try to see if I could find my name. And I told Jazz at the very least this would be a cool shot if I couldn't find my name. But there were hundreds of athletes, so I could not find my name on this damn wall. Behind these curtains in this gate was an elevator that took you downstairs and showed you where Hyrox was. And this weekend, Future had just dropped a song Like That. So I just remember coming down the elevator and just hearing the song Like That playing in my head as I started to get excited to compete and see if the improvements I made in my game were going to pay off. What was cool about this Hyrox is the way they set it up is they had the spectators area like a couple of different spots. So you could either watch the wall balls or you could watch the rower, but they really made it easy for you to watch and be able to record or cheer people on. So here I am watching people finish their wall balls. They split you up by your running time.
Yo,
so
stay.
my boy Station is a much better runner than I am. So him and his partner won an earlier heat. So I was able to catch them and get some footage of them competing. Here they are in the sled push. You can really see how the sport's grown. There's so many more lanes since the last time I did it. These guys really got off to a good start and they crushed it.
Yeah.
Your technique on the sled push is super important because if you can get into a good rhythm where you're leaning on
Oh,
it
word?
and you're using your entire body weight, that allows
Yeah,
you
for
to
sure.
use both your upper
And if
body
you have like
and
his contact
your
info,
legs,
you could definitely
it
like
helps
boot me
conserve
up.
some energy and keeps your legs from burning on the runs. So now my time is coming. I'm putting my shoes on, getting ready to head to the athletes area. And this year I made a very distinct choice to wear a very light color so I could stand out. And it actually ended up working out for me because when you go back and you look at a lot of the footage that Hyrox posted in DC, you can see I'm pretty much featured in every video.
It's officially game time. We made it. We're here. You guys aren't gonna have a hard time finding me because I look like a brolic Smurf, but it's all good. I was a little nervous when I first got here, but now after seeing other people doing it and warming up, I'm ready. And my motto that I've been using my whole prep is run my own race, and that's what I'm gonna do.
One thing nobody tells you about Hyrox is you have to be very mindful of your start time because no one is going to come get you and tell you that it's time for you to start. And if you end up in the wrong heat, you may not be able to go. So it's finally my time to start. One of the coolest things in Hyrox is they line you up. You go through a meditation. They go over the rules with you, and they really get you pumped up and fired up to start. So here we are behind the curtains, being led through a guided meditation to get our minds set. The pregame warm-up area is really one of the strengths of the Hyrox community because whether you're a beginner, a pro, an all-star, whatever it is, everyone back there is super supportive and motivating and encouraging each other just to do your best and go out and have a great day. One thing with this is you have to be very careful and mindful not to stand in the front if you're not that fast because there's so much height, there's so many people that you could get tricked into running a faster pace than you probably should, and it can throw your complete game day off. And just like that, boom, there we were off to the races. Now the first lap in your 1,000 meters of the Hyrox races is always going to be the shortest. So it's super important to be mindful of your pacing because it's shorter. Most people end up running this one faster and it throws their game off. So coming off of the first run, you're going to go to the skier. Now, my strategy on the skier is I'm actually a pretty good skier, but I try not to go as hard as I can because this is a place I use as active recovery so I can get right back into the run hard. So typically for me, I try to keep my pace under 2 minutes, but close to like 152 to 155 pace, just so I know that my heart rate is controlled, but I also know that I'm going to finish in a timely manner. Now, one thing no one tells you here is that when it comes to the rock zone, it's not how fast you finish the event, it's how fast you leave the rock zone. So your goal here is just to get out of the rock zone as fast as you can. So as soon as you finish your event, you want to run right out of the rock zone. And as you can see, I hadn't learned that yet. So I'm walking to catch my breath, but I probably should have ran right out because I lost a lot of time here. The first time I did Hyrox, a couple of the laps, I had to take a little bit of a walk. So my commitment here was just that no matter how long it took me, I was not going to stop running. I was going to try to run the entire time and keep myself focused and tell myself whatever I needed to do to ensure that every lap I was running. The setup of Hyrox DC and my baby blue outfit made it very easy for all my friends and family to see me and also to get some great footage so you guys could see what was actually going on. So when we got to the sled push this time around, admittedly my technique wasn't great, but the sled wasn't really heavy. So I really just did what I had to do and tried to finish this one as fast as I could while also bringing my heart rate down. One of the biggest things I noticed on the sled push is the first time I did it, I had a partner. So even though I did the majority of the pushes, having someone to break up the work made a huge difference. Now, coming off the sled push into the run, my heart rate was super high. So I was just focused on getting my heart rate to come down a little bit as we headed into the sled pull. Now, this is where things got a little funky. Again, the way my gym is set up, I don't have a ton of space to practice the sled pull, so I'm always a little sketchy on the sled pull. So the farmer's carries happen to be one of my strengths, so typically I hit that pretty hard. The farmer's carry setup is kind of like a maze, so finding the person that you're watching can be a little difficult because you're going up and down almost like the TSA line. But the key here is to not stop on the bends. You want to run the straightaways, and if you need to rest, stop at the end of the straightaways. But the longer you take with this, like I always tell anybody who's competing at Hyrox, the race truly doesn't begin until after the rower. Because once you come off the rower, you got the burpee broad jumps, you have lunges, you got farmer's carries, you got wall balls, and that transition is truly where you see the mental toughness of each individual athlete. Because at this point, your legs probably feel like logs, your heart rate's probably at least 160, and you have every reason to want to stop. But you have to push yourself through because you know after the lunges, you have a run, and then you have the wall balls, and then you are all done. Because this year, I had done a much better job with the running. When I got to the wall balls, my legs were cooked. So at this point, I was just trying to do as many as I could and get them out the way. Now, my practice, I had been doing 25, 30, 20, and then just knocking out the rest. But when I got here at this point, there was no logic, there was no strategy. It was just fight or flight. I was really just trying to do what I could. And Jasmine made sure to get a great angle so you guys could see my hairy back. Well, some of that's not hair, some of that's dirt, but she definitely got a good angle. Now, one of the cool things about Hyrox DC is my aunts came and they were cheering me on. So seeing them in the crowd when I wanted to stop gave me the motivation to continue to go and to finish. And I felt very proud of myself to complete my first solo Hyrox. I definitely died a little bit this time before standing up. But like always, you got to hit that post race flex. I was extremely proud of myself and all the work that I put in. So I felt great about my finish.
So it's over. I finished. I made it through. I didn't get the time I wanted, but a lot of times things like this aren't about the time, the numbers, the rankings. It's just about finishing. But I'm very proud of myself for a couple things. Number one, as much as I wanted to, I didn't stop on any of my runs. I actually ran too much, and I think I might have done a couple extra laps on some of my runs. Number two, I didn't stop on the burpee broad jumps. I did them. I actually moved faster than the burpee broad jumps than I have in any of the times I've done this before. Number three, I ran on the farmer's carries, and I really pushed it. Number four, the lunges gave me a tough time, and I made a mental commitment that I wasn't going to stop. So like I told you guys in the beginning, June 1st, I'm going to do this again, and I hope to be a little better, a little faster, a little stronger.
What first got me to fall in love with fitness was my freshman year in high school, 2 months after moving to a brand new school, not really knowing a ton of kids. My mom ended up passing away. And when that happened, it created a major void in my life because your home life shifts. You go home, My dad's working, so there's nobody at home but my mom, my sister. There's no more after school snacks. And just being home in that environment, knowing that you're missing someone who was so special to you was tough. So when that happened, I just took on any sport I could. I played football, basketball. I went to the weight room. I went to the park to play ball after basketball practice. Anything that I could do physically to just get myself moving and get outside of my head is what I tried to focus on. And what really made me fall in love with fitness is for that hour, that 45 minutes, that 90 minutes, whatever it is, however long you're moving your body, all the other thoughts are quiet. So the sadness, the grief, the despair, all those things are just not there. So for me, when I saw how that made me feel, it became an important part of my life. And as I became an older, more mature adult, I realized I wanted other people to experience this. In 2012, I was working 5 jobs. I was not very happy in my life, but I was working to help support myself and my family. And I made a decision one day that I was gonna change my life. So I started working out again because after high school, I stopped working out. So I started lifting, I started doing CrossFit, and I lost 70 pounds. And then when I did that, it inspired me to help others do it. And that's my career as a trainer began. From that point, I started out at a gym as a trainer. Within 2 years, I became an owner. And then within 10 years, I was at a place where I knew this wasn't for me. I knew this was my calling, but the place I was doing it and the people I was doing it with, it just wasn't the right environment for me. So I made a drastic change where I left that gym and I opened up a gym of my own with 2 of my friends. And it's been a really interesting journey. There's been ups and downs. And I don't have kids, but I could imagine this is what having kids feels like. Just pouring so much of yourself into something every day and letting that be your main focus. That's how I felt with the Noble Project. All my thoughts, my energy have gone here. And, you know, it's definitely been tough finding balance of prioritizing myself, my business goals, life, family, friends. And you don't have it figured out. There's no blueprint for this. One of the reasons I'm inspired to do this vlog is because I want to show other entrepreneurs who are in the same boat what my journey was like, how I overcame it, what I did. Because when you start out on the entrepreneurial journey, being able to see someone else's journey could help. Like, it would be awesome if I could go and watch a video of Jeff Bezos when he first started Amazon, or Bill Gates when he started Microsoft, but you can't. So my hope is that along this journey, I can show you guys my success athletically, me becoming a better person, and just my journey as an entrepreneur.